Okay everyone, it's time for the Custom Card Review, the bi-monthly show in which I, the 5th best custom card reviewer, will review your custom cards. This time we have one on Volcanics. Very unpopular archetype, probably no one's heard of them. Volcanics, well, I don't really need to give you a little introduction of what Volcanics do. I'll talk about them as I talk about the cards. So first up, we have Volcanic Incinerator. It is a fusion monster, which requires Volcanic Doomfire, plus 4 Pyro-type monsters. So it requires 5 monsters, that's a lot. It better be really good in order to require that many materials, especially since Volcanic Doomfire is not very good, and isn't actually played in Volcanic decks. You know, the good ones that existed for like one format. When they got the Blaze Accelerator Reload card. So, this card has the materials, blah blah blah. Blaze Accelerator cards you control are unaffected by your opponent's card effects. That's neat. They don't really care about protecting Blaze Accelerator Reload. The other ones, the bad ones that you don't play, sure, I guess. During either player's turn, quick effect, you can target one Blaze Accelerator card you control in your graveyard, or that is banished. Shuffle it into the deck, and if you do, destroy one card your opponent controls. Now this is good, because if it didn't have that or that is banished effect, then I'd be like, wow, this card doesn't understand how Volcanics play. Because Blaze Accelerator Reload, the reason that card allowed Volcanics to see play for a bit was because it has the effect to banish itself from the graveyard during your opponent's turn, in order to send Volcanic Scattershot to the graveyard, which basically allowed you to Raigeki your opponent during your opponent's turn whenever you wanted. But it would have to banish itself to do that, so you can only do it 3 times before you needed Recursion to get the card back. And also, you want that card in the graveyard. So if this card banished it from your hand or graveyard, that would kind of go against Blaze Accelerator Reload, but it also allows you to return it from banished. That's the good part of it. Like in emergency, if you hadn't used Blaze Accelerator Reload yet, you could return it to the deck from the graveyard and get a nice, one-off pop. But it also allows you to recycle it. Bravo. The person who made these custom cards knows the archetype. And it continues on. When a monster your opponent controls is destroyed by a card effect, you can banish all spell and traps your opponent controls and in their graveyard, and if you do, inflict 300 damage to your opponent for each card banished by this effect. And you can only use each effect of this card once per turn. So, if you use its effect to destroy one of your opponent's monsters, since I think it targets any card, yeah, if you target a spell or a trap, it won't trigger the effect. But you can trigger the effect, and other cards you control can trigger the effect, or your Volcanic Scattershot can trigger the effect, to then just get rid of all of your opponent's spell and traps. This would, instantly win you a game against a Sky Striker player if they let this effect go off. But this card seems really hard to bring out. 5 monsters, it better have effects that can win you the game on its own. This one kind of has effects like that. It's good, but I think it's too hard to bring out, honestly. Even with, the fusion monster that's also been brought out. So far, this card has impressed me. Except for how hard it is to bring out. Next, we have Blaze Accelerator Fusion. I like this because it's Blaze Accelerator, which means it can be searched out with Volcanic Rocket, which is the Volcanic's main searcher. It also has Fusion in the name, which means it can also be used with Predaplant Verte Anaconda, which is always great. And it's also a quick effect. it's a quick play spell card, which kind of makes it, really... there are very few quick effect fusion cards for a reason. Even when, Shaddolls, they have a quick effect fusion, and that card was limited because having quick effect fusions is really good. Even though that one was basically just a polymerization quick effect. It didn't allow you to use cards from the graveyard, which this one does, so let's read it. Fusion summon one Pyro-type fusion monster from your extra deck. by shuffling the fusion materials listed on it into the deck from your field or graveyard. It doesn't let you use your hand, so you have to get them in the graveyard. The person who designed this knows what they're doing. If a volcanic monster you control is removed from the field by battle or your opponent's card effect, you can banish this card from your graveyard. Add one volcanic monster from your deck to your hand. You can only use this effect of Blaze Accelerator Fusion once per turn. So the fact that it's a quick play card that can fusion monsters from the graveyard makes it pretty good, but it only has that one target. I don't know if, I think maybe Blaze Phoenix can be brought out with it. Let me quickly search up how many fusion monster pyro types there are. Looks like there's 8 of them. And of the 8, half of them are Gem Knights. Some of them are non-effect fusion monsters. Yeah, basically just Blaze Phoenix. That's the only other one that's a possible target. So other than just the one that was created for this, they would really need more fusion monsters besides Volcanic Incinerator because he requires too many materials. Also, wait, how does it use the materials? From your extra, by shuffling the fusion materials listed on it into the deck. Okay, never mind. I just assumed it would banish the cards. This allows you some extra recursion. It allows you to return the volcanic cards to your deck, which is something volcanic decks do like to do. Okay, this is good. It's a good fusion card. Good job. It even has a hard once per turn on its effect because they knew it was kind of broken. Next up we have Volcanic Mortar. Mortar, this is kind of like the sub-terror fiendness of the archetype, an actual hand trap. Volcanics have more than enough graveyard effects. They do kind of need something from the hand, and this kind of goes over that, it's a negate. During either player's turn, when a card or effect is activated while you control face-up Blaze Accelerator card, so you can't use this in other decks. You can discard this card from your hand, negate the activation, and if you do, inflict 1,000 damage to your opponent. You can only use this effect once per turn. Hard once per turn. That's good. It also only negates and doesn't destroy, which is good, just like Sub-Terror Fiendness. Fiendess. And it doesn't destroy the card that it negates, which is good, because not a lot of hand trap monsters actually destroy and negate. They do one or the other. Perfectly reasonable for the archetype, a good boost. And the last one we have is Volcanic Arsenal. So it's a trap card, and its effect is choose 2 volcanic monsters in your deck with different names. Send one of those cards to the graveyard, then add the other one to your hand. So if this was a spell card, I'd be like, wow, that's way too much for one card to do. But since it's a trap card, that's honestly entirely reasonable. Like adding a card to your hand and also sending one to the graveyard. You do want some of the volcanic monsters in the graveyard, and you do want to search out Scattershot so that you can send it to the graveyard. Actually, I think that one can be sent directly from the deck. So it's still nice because you can search out Volcanic Rocket. That's a good one. It's always nice to have a searcher for that. The fact that the trap card severely limits that, because like both of those effects are good, and you can essentially go +2 off of the effect. But the fact that it's a trap card and you have to wait a turn to use it actually kind of balances it out a little bit. It also has a graveyard effect. You can banish this card from your graveyard, add a Pyro type monster from your graveyard to your hand. So, only adding the monster from your graveyard to your hand is great. If it was a card from the deck, that'd be a little bit too much. Too much advantage. But just the card from the graveyard, you can just add the monster you sent to the graveyard with this effect. So basically, you can search out 2 cards. That's great. The fact that it's a trap card, and also, you can only activate 1 effective Volcanic Arsenal per turn, only once that turn, is a hard once per turn shared between both of its effects. So you can't both add one, send one to the graveyard, and then add the other one back in the same turn. You have to wait until your next turn, which you could probably do as soon as your next turn started. You'd probably use this during your opponent's end phase, or if they were trying to destroy it, and blah, blah, blah. Good balance. Good wording on these. Very impressed with these 4 cards. Like, the person who made these obviously knows the archetype well. They know their problem-solving card techs, and they also know, like, what good cards should do and how to balance them out. I'm honestly surprised by these. Like, I have such low expectation for most of these that these ones are like, you know, perfect. So good in comparison to what I normally see. It's great. I'd have to give this, on my grading scale, a 7 out of 7. That's how I usually do it, right? Or an S tier out of 8 A, B, C, D. Good stuff. Excellent volcanic archetype. You obviously know your stuff very well. Okay, so that's it for the custom card review. It was a great custom cards that I reviewed. Only 4 of them though. I do have the 8 card limit. So, if you want to send in custom cards, you send them in through my Twitter. That's the only place I get them. Make sure there is screenshots available. I still have people send me like links to their custom archetype created on Dueling Book, I think it's called. Like, just take screenshots of those. I know they send them in because I think it saves time, but really I only look at the pictures. And I'm not going to take the screenshots for you because I have more than enough people sending in custom cards who do bother to take the screenshots for me. That's very helpful. There'll be lots of stuff in the description to help you out in making custom cards. And there's also 2 Discord servers dedicated to custom card stuff. I'll have links to both of those in the description. I'm not quite sure how active one of them is, but I know the other one's super active. You can't really hurt by joining both of them. Okay, and with that, I guess I'll see you all next week.